What does it mean to bring order to chaos? In 1997, id Software, the creators of Doom, were no longer just the kings of the genre. They were the genre. And with Quake II, they faced a monumental task to make a follow-up act that would redefine first-person shooters and usher in a whole new universe in true 3D worlds. But instead of just repeating themselves, they executed a pivot so sharp it set a new standard. Quake II is a story of refinement, of taking the raw, gothic chaos of the original and forging it into a cohesive industrial-strength war machine. It was a game that embraced a new kind of environment and world-building that traded the abstract realms of the original Quake for the industrial hellscape of the Strogg's homeworld to create one of the most impactful and brutally efficient shooters of all time. Let me show you exactly how they pulled that off. In the first part of this video, we'll deep dive into the legacy of this PC gaming titan. We'll explore its shift to a unified sci-fi vision against the terrifying Strogg, break down the symphony of destruction of its weapons arsenal, and see how its legendary thrash metal soundtrack took the action to a whole new level. In the second part, we'll totally geek out on the revolutionary Quake II engine that pushed 3D hardware to its limits and powered a generation of classics. And we'll examine how its skill-based multiplayer laid the groundwork for modern-day esports. So strap in, we're going to see how the legendary developers at id Software took a classic formula and sharpened it to a razor's edge. The first Quake was a masterpiece of mood, but its identity was fractured, a blend of medieval and monstrous. Quake II represents a moment of brilliant focus. id Software jettisoned the abstract level design for a structured, mission-based campaign. You're a Marine, part of a massive planetary assault against the Strogg, a cybernetic race of terrifying killers. This wasn't about stumbling through random portals. It was about a direct, bloody invasion. The level design now had a more logical flow. You had objectives: destroy the generator, secure the bunker, and assassinate the commander. This gave the violence a purpose, a narrative thrust that was new for id Software. The industrial sci-fi aesthetic was consistent and oppressive, from the grimy metal corridors to the grotesque biomechanical fusion of the Strogg themselves. This was a universe with a clear, hateable enemy, and as a Marine, you were the hammer sent to smash them. So let's break down the suicide mission that puts you on the front lines of that invasion. While the narrative served the action, Quake II's premise provided a powerful and motivating context. The game is set during Operation Alien Overlord, humanity's desperate, all-or-nothing counteroffensive against the Strogg. This cybernetic race is a terrifying foe, not only for conquering worlds, but for harvesting them, dismembering other species to create new Strogg soldiers and machinery. You play as Corporal Bitterman, a Marine whose drop pod is knocked off course during the initial planetary assault, causing him to crash land far from the primary landing zone. He is, effectively, the last man standing. The mission is a surgical deep strike behind enemy lines to cripple the Strogg planetary defenses, clearing the way for the human fleet. This isn't a random crawl, it's a methodical dismantling of their war machine, with each objective escalating the stakes. Your orders, delivered via a tactical computer, are clear and take the fight right to the enemy. The first objective is to fight through the outer hangars and comm facility to establish a communications uplink. This is your lifeline, allowing command to relay intel and update your mission parameters. From there, you push into the heart of their industry. You'll fight through the factory and the mainframe to sabotage their power grid, and descend into the mines to destroy the Stadium processing plant, crippling the energy source that fuels their entire civilization and its planetary defense weapon, the Big Gun. The journey is paved with the grotesque inhabitants of Strogos. You'll face the relentless charge of berserkers with their hydraulic fists, dodge the molten hot spray projectiles of the gunners, and be hunted by the gladiators with their freakish mechanized legs and shoulder-mounted railgun. the gladiators, the big daddy of all the Stroggified humanoids. The campaign is punctuated by epic boss encounters against Strogg warlords. You don't just destroy baseless machinery, you assassinate key commanders like the gargantuan tank commander who first appears in the Unit 9 Palace mission. Your ultimate goal is to fight your way into the very heart of the Strogg capital, Cerberon, and ascend to the palace to assassinate the Strogg leader, the Macron, in his orbital asteroid base. The final battle consists of 2 stages. First, with the Macron piloting the Jorg exoskeleton. After you smash that, the Macron dismounts to resume the fight, where you can give him a proper beatdown in his final form. It's a straightforward tale of vengeance and persistence, but the specific objectives, from blowing up a power generator to calling in an airstrike on a bunker, gives a palpable sense of purpose to every firefight. You're not just surviving, you're single-handedly and systematically dismantling the alien war machine, one assigned target at a time. This, my friends, is the definition of how to make a great single-player campaign. Now, before we get into the heavy-duty firepower this game puts at your disposal, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is always here for a quick retro gaming break whenever you need it. I appreciate your support, since it's the only way that YouTube will highlight my videos and help my channel to grow. Alright, so let's get into the most important question. What are you fighting with? And to help you fight your way through this seemingly suicide mission is Quake II's Arsenal of Annihilation. Now, if the original Quake's weapons felt a little unrealistic or esoteric, then Quake II's arsenal was a symphony of utilitarian destruction. Every gun had a visceral, immediate purpose. The shotgun was a reliable workhorse. The hyper blaster was a searing stream of plasma. The railgun, a weapon that would become synonymous with the franchise, was a perfect risk-reward instrument of pinpoint death. But the star was the double-barreled shotgun. Its thunderous sound and devastating impact at close range made it a tool of pure, unadulterated power. And the gameplay loop was refined down to the very sharpest razor's edge. Movement was fast and fluid, which allowed you to use this arsenal to turn the Strogg's industrial base into a fricking slaughterhouse. But the weapons were only half of the story. The other half was the soundscape that made every single shot feel so powerful. A major part of what gave the on-screen action such intensity was the legendary audio landscape of Quake II. In some ways, the game's sound and music is almost a character in itself. The sound design is some of the best of the era. Every weapon has a unique, powerful signature. From the satisfying, chunky sound of the shotgun reload, to the high-pitched whine of the hyperblaster. The guttural death groans of the Strogg and the slimy squelch of their bloody gibs hitting the floor create a tactile brutality in the combat. But towering above it all is the legendary soundtrack by Sonic Mayhem. This wasn't ambient noise. This was a full-throttle, aggressive thrash metal score whose driving beats and metal guitar riffs drive you forward through the entire experience. Tracks like Quad Machine and Gravity Well are relentless, pushing up the action with their pounding drums and shredding guitars that make you feel like an unstoppable force of nature, making the payback that you dish out to the Strogg feel so damn good. This was a radical departure from Trent Reznor's atmospheric work on the first game, and it's a perfect fit. The music elevated the mood, one of pure, adrenaline-fueled rage and momentum. Now, we need to talk about the engine room, the revolutionary tech that made all of this possible. Quake II was not just a game, it was a technological statement. It was built on a completely new engine, a true powerhouse that supported features like colored lighting, full 3D acceleration through OpenGL, and more detailed textures. This was a monumental leap from the software rendering of the original Quake. The engine allowed for dramatic shadows and colored lights that painted the grimy industrial environments in hues of hazard yellow and emergency red, while giant skyboxes created the illusion of a vast alien world behind the factory walls. For those who had a 3DFX Voodoo graphics card, Quake II was almost like a religious experience. The jump from the software rendering of chunky pixels and flat lighting in the first game to the slick, brightly lit, and incredibly smooth world of hardware acceleration was arguably one of the greatest visual leaps in PC gaming history. The game just looked and felt like it came from the future. Here's the crazy part. This engine wasn't just for Quake. Its code became the foundation for a whole generation of PC gaming classics, each leveraging its robust capabilities in different ways. Let me explain. Valve licensed the engine's source code and began a process of radical modification to be used in the original Half-Life. They started with the first Quake engine for rendering, but heavily incorporated code from Quake II, especially its sophisticated client-server networking model, which was essential for the smooth, lag-free multiplayer that would later power Counter-Strike. This hybrid foundation was transformed into Valve's own Gold SRC engine. Valve's team then rewrote and expanded upon this base with one goal: to tell a story. They implemented advanced scripted sequence systems that allowed environments to change and characters to act around the player, creating a living world without cutaways. They improved the character animation system far beyond id's needs, giving life and personality to the scientists and the security guards of Black Mesa. This meant that Half-Life's seamless, immersive narrative, where the player is always in control, was directly enabled by the flexible architecture of the Quake and Quake II engines. Riven Software later harnessed the Quake II engine's core power for the gritty, close-quarters combat of Soldier of Fortune, which used its capability for detailed model rendering to pioneer a then-shocking location-based gore system. I remember playing this and groaning as I'd take down baddies one limb at a time, and it was pretty sick back then. It still is. Jeez. And that story of pushing technology forward didn't stop in the 90s. Fast forward a few decades, and someone found a way to make Quake II look like it was released yesterday. The technological legacy of Quake II took a breathtaking new turn in 2019, with the release of Quake II RTX by NVIDIA. This wasn't a simple remaster. It was a ground-up reimagining of the game's rendering engine to fully utilize modern ray tracing technology. Ray tracing simulates the physical behavior of light, creating incredibly realistic lighting, shadows, and reflections in real time. In Quake II RTX, every light source is now physically accurate. The muzzle flash from your gun realistically illuminates the surrounding corridors. Colored lights from consoles cast vibrant glows that bounce off metallic surfaces, and the skybox becomes a genuine source of global illumination, flooding outdoor areas with soft, natural light. Reflections are no longer pre-baked or screen space. Every puddle and polished metal surface displays a perfect, real-time reflection of the world around it. The impact is transformative. The once static, pre-lit levels become dynamic, atmospheric, and tangibly physical. It took the industrial grit of the original and rendered it with a level of fidelity that the 1997 developers could only dream of, proving that great art design, when paired with revolutionary technology, is truly timeless. And real quick, if you enjoy this content, I've put a link in the description below of a playlist of all of my other videos that you might also enjoy, including a bunch of other technical deep dives like this one, for many of your favorite old school games, so check it out and stick around for a while. Now, all of this single-player brilliance is incredible, but to truly understand Quake II's lasting impact, you have to look at where its heart was, the arena. It took the foundation laid by the first Quake and built a coliseum. It was the game that truly popularized deathmatch on the internet, with streamlined client-server architecture that made online play more accessible than ever. It further popularized the concept of mods and total conversions to a massive audience, enabling game communities to create their own legends. And more than anything, Quake II established a purity of skill-based combat. The combination of rocket jumping and the unforgiving precision of the railgun created a skill ceiling that was, and still is, immense. Its legacy is the DNA of every competitive shooter that followed. It was the direct ancestor of Counter-Strike, a proving ground for esports, and a benchmark for PC performance for years. So why does the industrial grind of Quake II still resonate today? It's not just the nostalgia of LAN parties or the thrill of a perfect railgun shot. It's the feeling of having a premier developer at the peak of its competence, taking a beloved formula and fearlessly sanding away the rough edges to reveal a sharper, more focused experience beneath. It's the seamless fusion of a cohesive sci-fi world, a refined and brutal arsenal, a pulse-pounding metal soundtrack, and groundbreaking new gaming technology. Quake II is more than a sequel. It's a masterclass in iterative design. It's the feeling of a perfectly tuned game engine, and the unforgettable sight of a Strogg commando exploding into 100 chunks of polygon gore. It is, quite simply, the perfect execution of a brutal and powerful vision of what gaming could be. But that's just what I think. What's your take on Quake II? How does it stack up to other popular FPS of the time? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your views. And don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. I'd like to invite you to subscribe for more feel-good retro gaming content. Alright my friends, this is the Retro Gaming Boss signing out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. You ever pull up the tactical map in Tiberian Sun and just sit there for a second, trying to figure out how you're gonna crack the mission? I know I did. Some of you probably built a wall of titans and just steamrolled everything. Others, you know who you are, took the sneaky back route, sent in a squad of engineers, and won in 5 minutes without firing a single shot. We've all had our style. I spent the last week replaying Tiberian Sun, and it really hit me. This game, with all its mechs and stealth tanks, is a perfect battlefield laboratory for Sun Tzu's The Art of War. Whether you're a brute force GDI commander or a sneaky Nod tactician, the game forces you to choose a path. So, in this video, we're going to break down those 3 core playstyles, using overwhelming force, having an impenetrable defense, or using a stealthy strike, and show you why switching between them is what separates winning a mission from truly understanding the game. So let's start with the one that probably comes to mind first when you think of GDI. If you were like me, your first instinct in any RTS was to build the biggest, baddest army possible. There's just something satisfying about selecting a massive group of units and clicking on the enemy base. For GDI, that's their whole identity. Slow, powerful, and utterly overwhelming. Sun Tzu said something that fits this perfectly. Victorious warriors win first, and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first, and then seek to win. Basically, the battle is won before it starts. It's in the preparation. GDI's early game is all about that. You're not only cranking out units, you're locking down whole Tiberium fields, building an overabundance in your power grid, and creating the industrial base that will mass produce the backbone of your army. For GDI, that backbone is the Titan. It outranges almost anything Nod can throw at you early on, so if you're playing GDI, your strategy isn't to rush. It's to hold your ground, to build up a critical mass, and then roll forward. You're winning the long game by using clearly sequenced planning and carefully managing production, not simply by using battlefield tactics alone. But here's where the game throws a wrench into pure brute force. What happens when the enemy knows they can't take you head on? They adapt. And in Tiberian Sun, that's where Nod's playstyle and the idea of making the enemy come to you gets deadly. Sun Tzu said, skilled warriors first make themselves invincible, then await the enemy's vulnerability. That's the defensive playstyle in a nutshell. You're not building an army to march across the map. You're building a fortress that the enemy will break themselves against. Now GDI actually has the ultimate tool for this, the Firestorm Wall. It's an energy shield that makes a section of your base temporarily invincible. But it's not a passive defense, it's a trap. You bait the enemy into attacking one area, pop the shield, and suddenly their whole assault force is stuck shooting at an invincible barrier while your Titans and Wolverines clean up from behind. Their aggression becomes their downfall. And it's not just walls. The developers spent forever on bridges. They admitted it took 10 times longer to program than expected, and those bridges are tactical choke points. A defensive player spots those natural bottlenecks,
lets the enemies start crossing, and then blows the bridge with an engineer or masked rocket fire. Suddenly, you've turned their advance into an expensive, isolated trap without ever needing a massive army. Swooping in with a swarm of orcas to chew through an enemy formation that overextended itself with no retreat after you've blown the bridge they were going to cross, it's just too satisfying. So that's the brute force and the defense. But like many important things in life, there's always the third way, one that barely needs any force at all. This is the playstyle that makes you feel like a tactical genius. You win missions in a fraction of the time, and it's all about deception. Sun Tzu called deception the most important principle, and said, all warfare is based on deception. When able to attack, we must seem unable. And this is where Nod shines. Their whole faction is built around it. They don't have the same type of brute force strength of GDI, but they have the tools that let you control the battlefield without ever even fighting fair. Take the stealth generator. It can cloak a huge chunk of your base, making it invisible to the enemy. They might see your harvesters coming and going, but they have no idea where your production is. That's not just defense, it's psychological. You're forcing them to spread their forces thin, searching for something they might never find. And then you've got the units. The Devil's Tongue flame tank burrows underground and pops up behind enemy lines to hit harvesters and power plants. The stealth tank is invisible until it fires. Your goal isn't to crush the enemy base in one push, it's to paralyze them. So here's how that plays out. Say you're in the Nod campaign facing a fortified GDI base with walls and titans. The frontal assault is suicide, but you've got a squad of stealth tanks. You don't send them to the front gate, you patrol around the map edge, avoiding their sentries, and hit their power plants. After some volleys, the base goes dark. Firestorm deactivates, defenses go offline. Now you're not attacking a fortress, you're attacking a sitting duck. Your small specialized unit just broke their entire system. Then bringing around your main assault force from the flanks to take down the base for the win, it's one of those good feelings you get in certain games that's almost unmatched. But here's the thing, GDI gets a taste of this playstyle too, and those missions are some of the most memorable in the game. Yeah, I'm talking about the stealth levels where you control the Forgotten, the mutant faction. You're not rolling in with titans, you're sneaking through canyons as a commando armed with a sniper rifle or railgun, taking out enemy infantry one by one, leading your squad of mutants, each with different strengths that allow you to bring the fight to Nod deep behind enemy lines. Even walking through thick Tiberian fields, which actually regenerates your health. These missions were pretty hard, but really fun, since they force you to think completely differently. You have to scout ahead, pick off key targets, avoid patrols, and use the terrain to your advantage. One wrong move and it's over. It's tense, and methodical, and when you finally pull it off, it feels more satisfying than any army you could have built. It's proof that in RTS, smarter beats stronger almost every time. So we've got GDI's overwhelming force, the impenetrable defense, and stealth and deception. But here's the thing, the best commanders don't just pick one, they blend them. Sun Tzu's ultimate idea is that the general who understands the situation best wins, and that means adapting. So take a pure brute force GDI player. They'll eventually hit a wall against a Nod player using stealth tanks to pick off harvesters and cripple their economy before the Titan army ever gets rolling. So the GDI player has to adapt by adding in Wolverines for anti-infantry, mixing it up with MLRS hover tanks with the speed to chase down those stealth units. Even putting a couple sensor units around the perimeter of your base to detect stealth units early. So you're still building up a powerful force, but you're adding layers to counter the enemy's deception. Or take a purely defensive player. They might build an unbreakable base, but if the enemy just expands to the other side of the map and builds up, you're sitting in a box, and at some point you have to unleash that army you've been protecting. Exceptional defense then becomes the foundation for a major offensive. But I'll be honest with you, I've always been a mech guy. Giant robots stomping around, metal feet shaking the ground. Yeah, that's my thing. I know, I have simple tastes. So when Tiberian Sun came out with the Titan and the Mammoth Mark II, I was all in on GDI. There was nothing better than building up this massive sprawling base, getting the production line going that keeps cranking out these metal giants, and then watching them stomp across the map like an unstoppable tide. It felt like a dream come true, commanding a massive army of those walking war machines, just steamrolling Nod into dust. The ultimate power fantasy indeed, and a big part of what makes this game so great and still worth playing today. That's why Tiberian Sun has earned this cult following. At its core, the game is about pure strategy. Whether you were a kid in 1999 building the Wall of Titans, or just now realizing the tactical genius of a well-placed engineer, the game forced you to think like a true commander. So, what's your favorite playstyle? Drop your war stories in the comments. I'm curious how you led the battles in Tiberian Sun, and I read every single one. Alright my friends, this is the Retro Gaming Boss signing out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
We just wanted something that was more dynamic, more alive.
Riven became much larger than what we could have imagined.
What is the price of a memory? Think back. The sun was warm, the water was impossibly blue, and the air hummed with the sound of strange creatures and ancient, forgotten machinery. It felt less like loading a game and more like discovering a new world. For many of us, Riven wasn't just a game, it was an event, a masterpiece. But is that what it actually was? Or is that just a story we've told ourselves for the last 28 years? Today, we're on a mission. We're going to boot up the original 1997 PC version of Riven, tear down the veil of nostalgia, and answer the question, does Cyan's legendary sequel to Myst truly hold up in 2025? Or has time been less than kind to this beloved classic? You might be surprised at what we find when we compare the game we remember to the stark reality of playing it today. So let's rewind. To understand Riven's impact, you have to understand the context. It was October 1997. Myst had already shattered records, becoming the best-selling PC game of all time, a title it would hold for nearly a decade. The hype for its sequel was palpable. This was still the era before the internet dominated our lives. Our hype came from gaming magazines, from word-of-mouth whispers from schoolmates, and in office break rooms. The sense of discovery was real because you couldn't just Google it, you had to go figure it out. And when you finally got your hands on that massive 5 CD-ROM box set, it delivered. Riven was a technological and artistic marvel. The development, led by the Miller brothers and co-director Richard van de Vende from Disney and ILM, spanned over 4 years and cost between $5 and $10 million, more than 10 times the budget of Myst, and boy, did it make a difference.
The best feeling of all comes at the very end when you finally get to see how all those things that you designed, all the complexity that you put into this environment and just hoped it would work, it comes together and it works.
Publications like Salon literally proclaimed that Riven approaches the level of art. The graphics were unanimously praised as the best anyone had ever seen in an adventure game. But it wasn't just about raw fidelity. The artists took a 3-day trip to Santa Fe to photograph textures, real wood, adobe, sand, to create a world that felt gritty, weathered, and utterly real. Not like the smooth plastic common in CGI at the time. They modeled even the smallest screws individually. This world was built with almost a Tolkien-esque level of detail.
Riven became a place to us as we were designing it. Richard and Robin were picturing themselves there. It was part of what we were doing.
Our attempt was to make elements in the Riven world look old and used and broken in. Because you see a lot of computer-generated art that looks plasticky or new or somehow strange. It doesn't look real.
We're used to weathered things. That implies reality. The trip to Santa Fe came out of our need for textures. It's as simple as that. So we got pictures of wood and doors and sand and stucco.
We wanted to take a lot of pictures of, a lot of nice adobes and woods down there. Very old, kind of weathered wood doors and things like that. So we could map them onto our geometry. The huts, the village huts, those are all Santa Fe textures. Even the village doors, all from Santa Fe.
And the sound? Robin Miller's soundtrack, later released by Virgin Records, was a masterpiece of ambient world building. He created distinct motifs for Atris, Catherine, and the villain, Gen. Gen's theme in particular is a work of subtle genius. You hear fragments of his melody throughout the entire game, a constant, subtle reminder of his control over the decaying age, long before you ever meet him. This wasn't just a game, it was an immersive sim before the term even existed. It was a place you visited. That was its original, powerful allure. But that was then. Let's fast forward to a modern playthrough. I fired up the original CD version on the Windows 11 machine, and folks, the magic does not translate immediately. The first challenge is getting the thing to run. We're talking about resolution limitations locked at 640 by 480. On a 4K monitor, it's a postage stamp. So you stretch it, and the aspect ratio goes all wrong, making everything look squat and distorted. Then there's the compatibility headaches, crashes, glitches, and the infamous pixel hunting, where your cursor has to hit an exact single pixel spot to interact with something. The official remake version available on digital storefronts today solves some of these issues, but it's still the core aged experience. And then there's the gameplay itself. The point-and-click interface, revolutionary for its time, now feels clunky. Movement is a series of disjointed slides from one pre-rendered still image to the next. You click an arrow to turn, wait for the disk to spin, and load the new image, and then proceed. The famous zip mode helps, but it highlights how much of the game is waiting. This deliberate pace was part of the atmosphere in 1997, but in 2025, it feels a bit like molasses. And the puzzles, oh the puzzles. Riven is infamous for them, where Myst often felt like a series of isolated puzzle boxes on different ages. Riven's puzzles are the world. The entire game is one gigantic, interconnected meta-puzzle. There's no hand-holding, no quest log. You need to decipher an entire alien numbering system based on animal symbols. You need to understand the geography of 5 islands and how they relate to each other. You need to pay attention to everything. For some, this is the pinnacle of game design, a world that doesn't cater to you, but demands that you understand it. For a modern player accustomed to waypoints and objective markers, it might not make any sense and lead only to frustration. Is it brilliant, impenetrable design, or just a bad experience, especially for those new to the series? The line is razor thin. So, what's the consensus today? If we take off the rose-tinted glasses and look at community perception, it's fascinatingly divided. The hardcore fans, the ones who were there when it was first released, still revere it. They talk about the genius of the animal number system, the awe of finally understanding the marble puzzle, the sheer terror of being captured by Gen. For them, the challenge was part of the charm, the price of admission for a truly unparalleled experience. But for the new player in 2025, the reaction is more mixed. I've read countless forum threads and watched modern playthroughs. The most common sentiment is respect, but not necessarily enjoyment. They appreciate its historical significance, its ambition, its sound, and art direction. But they frequently cite the sluggish pacing, the unforgiving logic, and the constant, repetitive backtracking across the 5 islands as major barriers to fun. One modern reviewer put it perfectly. Playing Riven today is like visiting a beautiful ancient cathedral. You can admire the architecture and the history, but you wouldn't necessarily want to live there. The difficulty curve isn't a smooth ramp. It's a sheer cliff face that requires a leap of faith. But it's not all rough edges. When we look at Riven through a modern lens, certain elements don't just hold up, they shine brighter than many contemporary games. The world building is still top tier. The culture of the Rivenese people, oppressed by the godlike Gen, is told entirely through environmental storytelling. The crude rebel symbols of the Moiety scratched into the walls, the stark contrast between Gen's pristine gold inlaid temples and the decaying villages of the natives. You're not told a story, you uncover it. This is the technique many modern games are still trying to master. The ambient sound design is timeless. The chirping of insects, the lapping of water against wooden pylons, the deep, groaning shift of massive geological plates, it all combines to create an audio landscape that is still deeply immersive and unsettlingly real.
One strange thing about making a world like this is that there's no sound to it until you're done.
We had made these animations basically with a deaf ear. We didn't know what these animations were going to sound like. We had ideas for what they were going to sound like, but when the sound is put into them, it really makes them real. I mean, it makes them come alive for us.
And the overarching narrative, a rescue mission set in a dying world ruled by a mad, narcissistic tyrant, is classic and compelling sci-fi. The live-action performances, while dated, have a certain charm, and the multiple endings, especially the canonical one where you trap Gen in a prison book and help Catherine evacuate the Rivenese people, remains incredibly satisfying. On the critical side, the elements that show their age are hard to ignore. The interface is undeniably clunky. The lack of modern accessibility features, no scalable text, no difficulty settings, just feels archaic. The constant need to swap between the 5 CDs on the original version was a literal physical interruption to the immersion. And that repetitive backtracking we mentioned is a real turnoff that will test your patience. So where does that leave us? What is Riven's enduring legacy? It's complicated. Its historical significance is undeniable. It was the best-selling PC game of 1997, moving over 1.5 million copies in its first year and eventually over 4.5 million in total. That alone is a stunning accomplishment. It won awards for its graphics and pushed the entire industry forward in terms of storytelling and immersion. It proved that games could be contemplative, artistic, and deeply intellectual. But is it a masterpiece that stands the test of time? I think the answer is yes, but with a glaring asterisk. Riven is a museum piece. You can't deny its craft, its influence, and its ambition. To truly appreciate it, you must meet it on its own terms. You have to accept its pace, its obscurity, and its technical limitations as part of the package. For the nostalgic gamer, revisiting Riven from 1997 is a powerful trip down memory lane, but you may find the path rougher than you remember. For the curious new player, it's a fascinating, often frustrating, archaeological dig into gaming's past. Its essence, the awe, the mystery, the satisfaction of solving a world absolutely still resonates. But you have to be willing to overlook its very rough edges. It's not a game for everyone, but for those it is for, it remains an unforgettable journey. Perhaps it's the ultimate testament that we're still talking about it, debating it, and yes, even remaking it nearly 3 decades later. The recent 2024 full 3D remake with VR is proof that the core of Riven, its world, its puzzles, its soul, is timeless. It just needed a new shell.
Thank God you've returned. I need your help.
So was it really that good? For its time, unquestionably. For right now, it's a masterpiece that requires a bit of work to love, and maybe that's exactly how it should be. Thanks for watching. What are your memories of Riven? Do you think it holds up, or is it best left in the past? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to see us tackle another classic, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Alright my friends, this is the Retro Gaming Boss signing out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next
Okay to
one.
make a mistake.
The island has been steadily decaying for years.
Tonight we're going back, all the way back to 1991. Not just to play a game, but to re-experience a turning point. This is the story of Wing Commander 2, Vengeance of the Kilrathi. And to understand why this game hits so hard, we need to first look at what it was all building on, and the massive risk it took with you, the player, right from the opening scroll. And if you stick around to the end, I'll show you how this one title almost broke my dad's PC. To understand why Wing Commander 2 mattered, it's crucial to look at what came before. The original Wing Commander in 1990 was a revelation. It took the space combat sim, a genre often focused on cold, repetitive mechanics, and wrapped it in a layer of cinematic warmth. You weren't just a pilot, you were a pilot on the TCS Tiger's Claw. You had wingmen with names and personalities, a career that could rise and fall, and a war that felt personal against the feline Kilrathi. It was a massive hit, but for Chris Roberts and the team at Origin Systems, it was just the foundation. They saw the potential to push further, to make the universe feel more alive, and the stakes feel even higher. Vengeance of the Kilrathi, released just a year later in September of 1991, was that ambitious leap. It arrived at a time when PC gaming was rapidly evolving, with sound cards becoming standard and CD-ROM drives starting to whisper promises of a multimedia future. Wing Commander 2 stood right on that precipice, looking forward. And the way they chose to start the story is still one of the boldest narrative openings in gaming. Let me show you what I mean. Wing Commander 2 picks up with one of the most powerful hooks in gaming, the utter disgrace of failure. In the closing moments of the first game's secret missions, the legendary carrier Tiger's Claw is destroyed. You encounter mysterious, flickering fighters you can't properly target, but your flight recorder is damaged. With no evidence, your claims of Kilrathi stealth fighters are dismissed. This results in you being court-martialed and branded the Coward of Tithrak Mang, and exiled to a backwater patrol. The game begins not with a hero's welcome, but with a decade of shame hanging over you. The immediate personal stakes change everything. Your motivation isn't just to win the war, it's to clear your name, to prove you weren't a coward, and to expose a terrifying new Kilrathi technology. This personal crusade is woven into a larger, structured campaign tree. Unlike the first game's more open progression, Wing Commander 2's story branches based on success or failure, but it always drives forward, pulling you through a plot filled with twists, traitors, and tragic sacrifices. Characters like the stern Admiral Tolwyn become more than just portraits. Through expanded dialogue and story sequences, they feel like crewmates, for better or worse. But a great story needs a believable world to live in. So how did Origin make this universe feel more alive in 1991? The answer lies in a series of technical and design choices that were all about immersion. The technical improvements, while subtle on paper, were profound in practice. The sprite-based graphics were richer, with more detailed ship models and vibrant space environments. The audio took a monumental step forward. This was one of the first PC games to incorporate significant voice acting, available through the separate speech accessory pack.
Guards, you are dismissed. Arise, grandson. How goes the war against the humans?
Hearing your wingmen's tense radio chatter, Admiral Tolwyn's disdain, or the Kilrathi's guttural threats wasn't just a novelty, it was an immersion multiplier. The game's manual, presented as Jones fighting spacecraft, added immense depth. It wasn't merely a list of control layouts, it was an uber-detailed pilot's guide, complete with technical schematics, weapon explanations, and fictional commentary that sold the reality of this war. And the heart of this experience was the ships themselves. The roster in Wing Commander 2 wasn't just a list of stats, it was a carefully crafted ecosystem of roles, and learning to fly each one was like learning a new instrument in a combat symphony. The cockpit design evolved too, from nimble fighters to the hulking broadsword bomber. Each had a unique instrument layout. The interface with its target lock brackets, radar and radio communication screens made you feel plugged into a real spacecraft systems. It was a masterclass in the elegance of design, where every element served both gameplay and the broader in-game world. Now, anyone who's ever played a Wing Commander game knows firsthand how the ships are the real star of the show, and Wing Commander 2 expanded the roster intelligently. The Terran Confederation lineup saw upgrades and new additions. You'd start in a humble patrol craft, but soon graduate to the workhorses like the Rapier and the formidable Saber, which introduced rear turrets. The real thunder came, however, with the A-17D broadsword heavy bomber. This was a lumbering beast, equipped with torpedoes that were capable of smashing through the shield of the enemy's capital ships, and also featured multiple turret positions you could switch between. And I remember the first time I got behind the controls flying a broadsword, taking this flying fortress on a bombing run, managing gunner positions, and having nerves of steel when lining up a slow torpedo lock with the enemy's flak exploding all around you. A white-knuckle ride, not for the faint of heart. And when I finally released the torpedoes and saw them rip apart a Kilrathi battleship, it was so exhilarating and felt more real than any other game I'd ever experienced before. Now, the Kilrathi received their own upgrades as well. The Sartha replaced the Stealthy as a light nuisance. The Drakhi and Jalkai provided heavy opposition, and the Drikath emerged as their answer to the broadsword. God, I hope I pronounced those correctly. Combat itself was a symphony of managing various systems in your craft. You monitored shield and armor levels on your VDU, managed weapon capacitor energy, and had to choose between laser, mass drivers, neutron, and particle cannons, each with different range, damage, and heat properties. Missile selection was tactical, heat seekers for tailing shots, and image recognition for stubborn targets. The addition of the ITTS, the improved target tracking system in advanced fighters, gave you a lead indicator, but using it effectively still required skillful piloting. The experience didn't end with the final mission of the main campaign. Origin had a bigger plan, and it involved expanding the story in ways that would directly influence how sequels were made. The 2 expansion packs, Special Operations 1 and 2, continued the story, adding new ships, missions, and layers of political intrigue. Special Operations 1 is notable for a truly bizarre moment of temporary alliance, forcing you into a surreal team-up with your arch-nemesis, Crown Prince Thrakas himself, against a common enemy. These expansions push the narrative into gray areas, dealing with mutinies, rebel factions, and human traitor organizations like the Mandarins. They also introduced new gameplay wrinkles like the crossbow torpedo bomber and the devastating unguided Mace nuclear missile. The expansion of story and system showed Origin treating the universe as a living experience, with accurate continuity throughout. Was something that was quite rare for the time. The legacy of Wing Commander 2 is massive. It solidified the formula of story-driven space combat. It proved that PC gamers were hungry for narrative depth and production values. It directly paved the way for the full-motion video extravaganza of Wing Commander 3 and 4, which would feature Mark Hamill of Star Wars fame.
Use the Force, Luke.
More than that, it created a template for making players care about their pixelated wingmen and the fate of their digital squadron. In many ways, the emotional stakes of modern narrative games can trace a line back to the feeling of losing a wingman that you'd flown a dozen sorties with, even if their death was just a line of text and a changed portrait. So with all that history, the real question is, does it still work today? Can a game from 1991, with all its technical limitations, still deliver a satisfying experience? Let's break down exactly what holds up and, more importantly, why. For all of the pixels and raspy voice samples, the core experience remains compelling. It's not held back by cumbersome mechanics. The action is immediate, the objectives are clear, and the feedback loop of combat, upgrade, and story progression is tight. The strategic layer of managing your standing and navigating the branching campaign gives you a sense of agency, but perhaps its greatest strength today is its pacing. A mission can be completed in a focused sitting. There are no open worlds to get lost in, no endless side quests. It's a curated cinematic experience from an era before that term was commonplace. The manual's rich lore provides all the context you need.
creating a believable universe. For a modern player, especially one with limited time, it offers a complete, satisfying narrative arc and thrilling gameplay that doesn't overstay its welcome. It respects your time while offering depth for those who seek it, whether that's mastering the flight model or hunting down every last piece of lore in the included novel excerpt. And that, I think, is the key to its enduring appeal. It's a focused dose of a specific feeling, one that's becoming increasingly rare. And for me, that feeling is wrapped up in a very specific memory, one that may sound familiar to a few of you that have read my Great Moments in Retro Gaming History series on social media. So, before I got my hands on it, I'd saved up for weeks from a part-time job in high school, and I marched into the software store with a stack of cash, determined to buy the very first PC game of my own. I brought the big box home, devoured all of the info in the manuals, and rushed to install it on the only computer in the house, my dad's old business PC. Yeah, it was an underpowered machine. It absolutely did not meet the game's system requirements. I'll never forget installing it, booting it up, and watching the opening cinematic. It didn't really play. It stuttered. It was like a digital slideshow, updating maybe one frame every second or two. The sound crackled. By any modern standard, it was a totally broken experience. But oddly, I was completely captivated, because even watching that slideshow, I could still see the story. I could see the graphics. I could see the tiger's claw exploding. I could see the disdain on Admiral Talon's face, watching the animation one painful frame at a time. And once I got into the cockpit, the game itself miraculously ran. The graphics, the sprites, the action, it all worked. Even running at a lower frame rate than it should have, it was still playable. And let me tell you, it was glorious. That's the magic of this game. It wasn't about the technical presentation being perfect. It was about the world it built and the story that it made you feel part of. I wasn't playing on a cutting-edge rig. I was playing on a machine that had no business running it, and it still hooked me. And that feeling of playing something that felt so advanced made every dogfight, every torpedo run, feel intensely personal. I'd spent time in the virtual bar listening to the chatter and feeling like part of the crew. Wing Commander 2 Vengeance of the Kilrathi is a cornerstone of PC gaming history, and most importantly, it's still a damn good time. It reminds us that the magic of gaming isn't always about polygons and pixel counts. It's about a great story, told well, that makes you feel like you're at the center of it. So if you ever get the urge to climb back into the cockpit, to hear that mission computer chime, to fly one more sortie for the Confederation, know that the Concordia is still out there waiting for you. But that's just what I think. What's your take on the Wing Commander series? How does it stack up to the modern online space games of today? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your views. And don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. I'd like to invite you to subscribe for more feel-good retro gaming content. Alright my friends, this is the Retro Gaming Boss signing out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
I will return, human.
First encountered during the holidays. The original Bard's Tale 1, Tales of the Unknown, on the PC. Yeah, I know, this wasn't a Christmas game per se, but the game's final boss, the evil Archmage Mengar, did cast an eternal winter spell over the game's town of Skara Brae, which is kind of fitting. This is an old-school hybrid visual and text-based first-person role-playing game. It was a common holiday gift for early PC gamers. Why? Because it was a deep, complex RPG that offered dozens of hours of adventure, perfect to keep you engrossed throughout the winter break. The gameplay emphasized building a party of adventurers and exploring every nook and cranny of the city and the numerous dungeons within it, which often required making detailed maps to navigate, all while solving puzzles, defeating the monstrous inhabitants, avoiding deadly traps, and finding powerful loot. It really was the perfect recipe for a dungeon-crawling adventure. And I remember spending Christmas afternoon creating my party, naming each of the characters after friends, and then getting them all wiped out in the very first dungeon. But that was part of the charm. The game demanded patience, strategy, and imagination. And by that I mean, when the rudimentary graphics stop, your creativity fills in the gaps where you see the action of each battle playing out in your mind's eye. This was always such a fun way to fill that unstructured holiday downtime.
and the in-game music was actually just simple PC speaker tunes that became the background soundtrack to Christmas evenings in my household. For many, The Bard's Tale represents the gift of time, the luxury to lose yourself in a sprawling fantasy where the real world was put on pause. And for me, it's become a bit of a tradition to speedrun through all the dungeons during the holidays, and it's always fun to fight through the hordes of the berserkers. Yes, I'm talking about that epic battle in Harkon's castle where your meager party of 6 squares off against a total of 396 bloodthirsty enemies in a single fight. Games from the 80s like this didn't mess around, jeez. This is just one of those comfort games that even today almost feels like a form of muscle memory when navigating the labyrinthine streets and alleys of Scarebray each year when I play through it again. If you're interested, I've put a link in the description to the freeware version of this game that you can try out yourself. I hope you like RPG grinding. Merry Christmas. Yeah, the one I spent days painstakingly mapping its dungeons by hand on graph paper, which probably explains my penchant for spreadsheets and OCD in my real-world job working with technology today. Dig for the lesser-known games. A game like The Bard's Tale from 1986 is a perfect example. Simple, challenging, and a foundational piece of RPG history that often gets overlooked. And most importantly, see these games through the lens of their own time. Judge them not by today's standards, but by their innovation, the impact, and what they meant to us back then.